Joining us on the phone today is Dinesh D'Souza. It's great to have you back on the show because when you did the last movie, you were on with me on the morning show. Since then, I've transitioned to afternoon, so great to have you on with us.
Thank you. I'm looking forward to it.
Well, saw the movie this weekend, and both Dr. John and I have got some questions. I guess we ought to let everybody know that if they don't know that much about you, you were born in Mumbai, which is now Bombay, and came to the States. You became a citizen in 1991. You also worked for President Reagan as a policy advisor. So you know a lot about what's going on in this country with the education you've got. And I tell you what, the film we saw this weekend, incredible. I've got one major question to ask. Are you in hiding in a bunker somewhere?
Well, as you know, 4 years ago, I made a movie on Obama.
Yep.
It was called 2016 Obama's America. I think it called him correctly. If you watch that movie now, you'll just see how it nailed Obama in terms of defining who he is. And also made predictions about him that came true.
Sure.
Now, they came after me after that movie. They charged me with a technical violation of the campaign finance laws. I was locked up in a federal facility overnight for 8 months. But you know what? There are certain benefits in being targeted in that way. I learned a lot that I didn't know before. I turned the lemon into lemonade. I took those scenes and stuck them right in this movie. And this movie is my journey to expose the Clintons and the Democratic Party. And it's such a devastating movie that the people who see it are fired up. They're moved by it. They applaud at the end.
Mm-hmm.
And the mainstream media is scared of this movie. That's why they're not even touching it. If you watch the networks now or MSNBC or CNN or NPR News, you wouldn't even know this movie is in 1,000 theaters across the country.
That's amazing. And the last one you did was the largest grossing documentary at the time. And this one has overtaken that already, has it not?
Well, this movie is the top documentary film in all categories this year. And it's in the top 10 political films of all time, even though it's only been out less than 3 weeks. So we're Michael Moore's last film made $3.8 million in its entire theatrical run. We made $4 million in our first weekend. So the movie's doing great. There's a book of the same title, Hillary's America. It's number 2 on the New York Times bestseller list. So the book and the movie are kind of my 1-2 punch. The movie lays out a visual story, and the book has chapter and verse and all the supporting references and details.
I tell you what, the whole movie I thought was so well documented. It was so well edited using, heritage footage to intersperse with current scenes that you filmed. Obviously, you could not have, a 14-year-old or a 16-year-old Hillary Clinton talking to, gosh, I'm losing my mind here. But anyway, the whole thing.
Well, I think you're referring to Saul Alinsky.
Yeah,
but what we did was we recreated these scenes, but they have a very high degree of verisimilitude. And what I mean is we use Hillary's actual words. We use Alinsky's actual words.
Yeah.
The federal judge, the Clinton appointee judge that had me locked up, he issued an order forbidding me to film my sentencing or film my community service or film my required psychiatric counseling, which I went through as if we're living in the Soviet Union.
Yes.
So what I did was I recreated those things, and that is exactly the way it looked. Even though I wasn't able to film the real thing, I did the next best thing.
Well, Dinesh D'Souza, I know that scene that, you talking with the judge and the judge sentencing you to 8 months and 5-year supervised probation, $30,000 fine. Nobody that I know of has ever been incarcerated on that same charge in the history of the United States. This guy was trying to make an example of you.
Well, the Obama administration targeted me from the beginning, and, people say, well, Dinesh, don't be ridiculous. Obama's the president. How do you know he was upset at your movie? Well, I know he was upset because he was raging against it on his website, barackobama.com. And then shortly after, the FBI came knocking on my door. Well, they're scared of me, and they're right to be, because, if you've seen this movie, you read the book, I mean, I've got the goods on these guys. When you watch that whole song and dance routine at the Democratic National Convention, their moral capital comes from the idea that the Democrats are the party of the little guy, of the ordinary man, of minorities, of immigrants, of women, of blacks. Now, I show in this movie that all of that is completely bogus. The Democratic Party has been, as it is now, the deadly enemy of the ordinary man. It has been the enslaver, the persecutor, the lyncher, the murderer, the mistreater, it has been the party that has subjugated and enslaved blacks. It has tormented immigrants. It fought women's suffrage for 30 years. So this is a party with a terribly sordid history. It has been the perpetrator of the worst crimes of American history. But in a kind of unbelievable jujitsu, what the Democrats do is they take all the bad stuff that they did and blame it on the South, or they blame it on America, or they blame it on the Republicans. And this is all an effort to divert attention from something that they have never acknowledged, they have never apologized for, they have never made any kind of restitution for.
Absolutely. Dinesh D'Souza, Dr. John Sutherland's my co-host, and he's got a question for you.
Yeah, we appreciate you being on with us today, no doubt about it. If for some people who have not seen it yet, give us a kind of a quick sort of, down and dirty trailer, verbal trailer of what they would see and a couple of the hardest hitting points you think that are the most damaging against Hillary Clinton.
Well, I begin with an expose of the party, and so I'll give a little nugget. In 1860, which was the year of the Civil War, I make the claim that no Republican owned a slave. All the slaves in the entire country were owned by Democrats. Now, this is sort of fighting words, right? Because one could easily refute it by supplying me with a list of Republicans who owned slaves. But no one's been able to do it because there weren't any. Now, the movie begins with Andrew Jackson. It continues through the Civil War and the early 20th century, and then we get to the Clintons and Obama. And I think here it's important to stress that the Clintons and Obama, even though they both studied, Hillary and Obama, under Alinsky, that they're actually very different. At the end of the day, I believe Obama is an ideological guy. I mean, I feel sorry for him. His ideology, to my way of thinking, is unfortunate, it's twisted, it's destructive, but he believes it. He thinks he's doing good for America. Hillary and Bill are like Bonnie and Clyde. I mean, this is basically a rip-off operation. They've been running rackets since the old Arkansas days. In the old days, they would cheat people of 50 cents or $50. And as they got bigger, they began to run bigger rackets. They got to the White House, and they're basically renting out the Lincoln bedroom, lifting pictures off the walls and stealing curios from the cabinet. They're selling pardons to big-time felons. This is the Clintons are on the make and on the take. That was true when Hillary was Secretary of State. That's what we're facing if we put the Clintons back in the White House.
Wow, that's incredible stuff. And John just asked for a couple of points. There's so many points that you could make, with Saul Alinsky, how he influenced them. But you mentioned Margaret Sanger. Margaret Sanger in your movie comes across as exactly what she was, just kind of a precursor to Hitler, I think.
Well, Sanger had something called the Negro Project, which was essentially a campaign to reduce the size of the black population. And this is very important because people say, Margaret Sanger, well, she just supported birth control. She wanted people to space their pregnancies. She wanted people to have fewer children. No, she wanted wealthy white people to have more children and brown people and black people to have no children. And she supported forced sterilization for that to happen. Now, these policies proposed by Sanger inspired the Nazi sterilization laws in the 1930s. So this is our actual history. And then we cut to Hillary Clinton receiving the Margaret Sanger Award in 2009 in Houston, and Hillary's going on and on about, I admire Margaret Sanger. She's my role model. I don't know why people criticize Planned Parenthood and so on. And so this is a part of the movie that gets people to really think about what progressivism actually means, because progressivism on the face of it just means progress.
Right.
But progress in what direction? How do these people define progress? Well, they define it as greater social engineering, greater social control, the government having, in a sense, a tyrannical hook, not only on your pocketbook, but also on your social life, your sexual life, whatever you say, whatever you think, whatever you believe. That kind of centralized federal control, that's what they mean by progressivism.
One of the things that I found particularly interesting, having read the book now a couple of times, was a cameo from Jonah Goldberg, the author of Liberal Fascism, which anybody who hasn't read that, just detail by detail by detail, how important was your sort of reading of that to incorporate those elements within the film itself?
Well, Jonah put me on to this topic of the links between progressivism and fascism. And I dug even deeper because I found, for example, that young JFK in the 1930s went to Nazi Germany, and he came back effusive with praise of Hitler. JFK goes, Hitler is a legend. He goes, there are people who don't like him, but that's because they're jealous of him. And then he goes on to say that if Hitler considers the Nordic people to be superior, that's because they are. This is JFK. Now, as Jonah points out, FDR, the great progressive hero, was an admirer of Mussolini, and it was kind of a mutual admiration society. Mussolini reviews FDR's book in an Italian magazine. He goes, "This guy's great. He's a fascist. He's one of us." Now, after World War II, the progressives look at all this and they go, "Oh, whoops, very embarrassing. We don't want young people to know about this. Let's leave it out of the textbooks." And so, yes, I'm very grateful to Jonah for putting me on the right track. I like his book, Liberal Fascism. I think I've gone beyond it, digging out even more stuff on the progressive links with fascism and Nazism. And so this is all, again, part of this sordid history of the Democratic Party that's been beautifully covered up by the progressives, who recognize that if people knew about it, they would recognize that the moral capital of the Democratic Party is then blown up. It's been depleted.
Dinesh D'Souza is our guest today, director of the movie that we saw this weekend, Hillary's America. And, you know, with the Clintons' track record for people, should we say just conveniently dying, you're a brave man. That's all I've got to say. Have you gotten any death threats from anybody? I don't mean the Clintons, but anybody in general.
Well, I've had those in the past. They don't really bother me in the slightest. Look, if the writer, creator, and producer of the movie Hillary's America were to disappear, who do you think would be the prime suspect? Not that I would rely on FBI Director Comey to do a whole lot. This guy seems to think that Hillary's crimes, even though he details them one after the other, don't justify an indictment. So, look, these guys are very well connected. They are thugs. I mean, they're dangerous, and I'm not taking them lightly. But on the other hand, I believe as an immigrant that the American dream is at stake, and so I'm fearless in being out there and getting the word out. I want to try to stop these scoundrels before they get their hands on the ultimate levers of power.
You know, a lot of documentaries ultimately go into an international rotation. Any efforts at this point to take it beyond, say, the American borders, to take this film elsewhere? I mean, clearly, this is a type of film that would play well in other places.
I think so, and our distributor for our DVD and home box office, which is Lionsgate, is in fact looking at foreign markets for the movie. At this point, to me, I'm focusing more on trying to get Democrats, independents, Latinos, blacks to see this film. I think the predominant people seeing it are Republicans and conservatives. Now, that's important because it is helping to unify the party. It's helping to fire people up. But the more independents that see this, the more difference this film can make. It will discombobulate people at the beginning because they'll be like, whoa, can this really be true? This stuff goes so against the stuff I've been taught, the stuff I hear from the media. The left is very dominant in academia, Hollywood, and the media. So they're able to put out a lot of propaganda without anybody having a loud enough voice to say differently. But I'm glad I have that voice, and so I feel a sense of responsibility to put the information out there to see if they can challenge it. They can't. And so they use all the big words to attack me. You know, this is delusional, it's paranoid, it's agitprop, blah, blah, blah. But that's all empty rhetoric. It's basically arrows that bounce off my back because there's so many facts in the book and the movie, and they haven't been able to dislodge even one of them.
That's an interesting point. You know, when you're looking at, say, your reviews and you go through something like Rotten Tomatoes, what you find is most of the mainstream press kind of coalescing around the same generic themes in terms of criticism. So they criticize the style. They'll say this is right-wing, that this is, exaggeration, propaganda. What's amazing to me, and I think you hit on it, is that at no time do they ever say this slanderous filth is factually incorrect. They may criticize the way it's done or the ultimate point, but pulling up just a random selection of these, this is a right-wing, propaganda film. Passionate, yes, but for the right wing. So what I'm saying is the criticism seems to be coming not on the facts, but on the way in which it's told, because the ultimate conclusion is Hillary's the wrong person to be president.
Well, even their criticism on the aesthetic grounds is shameless and is completely wrong because, look, this film is made by Jerry Molen, who is a longtime partner of Steven Spielberg. He is the producer of films like Hook, Minority Report with Tom Cruise, Jurassic Park, Schindler's List. This is a very well-made movie.
Yes.
It's in fact, John Voight, the actor who came to our premiere in L.A., he said to me, Dinesh, he says, you have actually reinvented the whole genre. And what he meant by this is that this is not a film that feels like a documentary. The typical documentary is talking heads, blah, blah, blah. This is a film that pulls you right into the story of American history. You're watching it right in front of you. The music is fantastic. People are often streaming with tears at the end. The whole audience stands up and applauds. And how often does that happen in a movie? There's an independent group called Cinema Score that rates movies based upon audience ratings. And we have the highest rating of any movie in the theater right now, tying Star Trek Beyond. And so this notion by the critics that this is somehow a poorly made movie or blah, 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 it's all nonsense. They're just saying that to scare you off from seeing it.
Yeah, I noticed that too. You know, when you look at, say, the quote critics, the critics' response to it is very low. On the other hand, when they do polling of the audience, it's as if they have seen two different movies. Well, they haven't. What it is the critics have brought in their own bias, their own prejudice, lack of an open mind. The audience have come there to try to pick up on something, to get educated on this, and they walk away saying, my God, is it really this bad? And the answer is, yeah, it is. What do you see in terms of those people who are undecided going to watch this film? Anything likely to move on that?
Well, I wish the Democrats and independents would see this movie. I also think that as the movie comes out in DVD, now that's some months away. It won't come out in DVD till October. But in October, if Trump and the Republican National Committee and the super PACs get behind the movie, they can take this movie in DVD and drop it in the mailboxes of swing voters in swing states around the country. That would have a cataclysmic effect. It would be deeply shocking. It would actually, I think, change many, many hearts and minds. I hope they do it. So far, they haven't approached me. I don't know if they're going to do it. But once they see the movie, I think they'll see the power of the film to sway people, particularly people who are sitting on the fence.
Dinesh D'Souza has been our guest, and he is the director of the movie Hillary's America. Dinesh, anywhere somebody can get more information, your Facebook page, your website, and where can they get the book?
The website for the movie is Hillary'sAmericaTheMovie.com. Hillary'sAmericaTheMovie.com. You can watch a trailer. You can plug in your zip code. It'll tell you where the movie is playing near you. The book Hillary's America, available in Costco, Walmart, Barnes & Noble, everywhere that you can get books.
Great. Well, thank you again for being with us, and thanks for another great production. Thank you very much.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Dinesh D'Souza, man, let me tell you what. It is a great movie. It is playing today at the Grand 16, the last day. So if you want to see it before
8:35 tonight.
Yeah, before the DVD comes out, trust me, man, this movie, if you're undecided, I think you might have a decision made for you if you go see it.